Hello everyone, this is Heather and I'm back with another video. This is the second episode to my photo transfer mini-series and I'm working on another art journal page. All three of these videos will be art journal pages, but there's a number of ways that you can use photo transfers. So here you saw me prep my page with gesso and then mist it lightly with some Heidi Swap Color Shine in gold, and now I'm just getting out my watercolors and I'm gonna do sort of a light gray wash, and this is all just easy things that I do on my background and it creates layers and depth. And even though maybe this mist probably won't show up at the end, it still adds to the layers of the page, I think, and adds some shimmer. And same with this gray watercolor that I'm adding. I just like the layering and different shades that it creates. So I dried that really well with my heat tool, and now I am going to use soft gel, and I'm just using a paintbrush to apply this, and I'm going to apply it quite thickly on my page, just in the area that I want my photo transfer to be on. And as you can see, I'm just being pretty generous and smoothing that out. I think that this soft gel didn't work quite as well as the medium gel that I used last time. I think it was medium gel. I'll have to check. And then I'm just applying my photo transfer right on top of that while it's still wet, and pressing firmly and squeezing out all the bubbles, and just making sure that is flush to the page as much as possible anyways. And you'll see me, I think, trim off a little bit because it was getting in the way of the coil. Maybe I did that already, I guess so. Here I'm peeling it back, and you can see that the photo transfer is kind of dull. The whole image did come off, but I think it was like only layers of the ink. Here's a close-up to see it. So I wasn't quite happy with how that looked, and I wanted a more clear image. So I'm using Mod Podge now, and I'm actually just going to adhere this transparency right onto the page and leave it there. I really like the way this image looks, and it's pretty much lined up with the image transfer, but if it's offset slightly, it kind of gives it a neat shadow effect. Oh, here is where I trim the edge that I was thinking of. So technically this part isn't really showing the photo transfer technique, but this is an idea of how to deal with your photo transfer. If you aren't happy with it, you can always find ways to cover it up or even add the transparency like I did. And it adds a shininess to the page, and it's a neat look anyways. To see it in real life is quite unique. So I highly recommend trying this. Even if you don't want to attempt the photo transfer, you could just put the transparency right onto your page because I think it looks quite cool. So here I'm using some note paper that I've got different notes on, and I'm just tearing it into small pieces and Mod Podging it onto the page. And as you can see, the way I like to Mod Podge is to put a layer on the page first, stick my paper down, and then add some more Mod Podge on top of that. And I'm doing my favorite technique again here, just using some brown tissue, and I'm going to create texture by wrinkling the tissue as I paste it onto the page. It's a really fun look. Just a note, if you haven't seen the episode 1 to this series, please check it out. I'll link that below in the playlist that I've made for it. And stay tuned for episode 3, which will be posted next Friday. And that will be the final episode. I probably will be experimenting with more photo transfers because there are a few other ways to do them, and I'd really like to try that. So keep an eye open for that and let me know if that's something you'd be interested in. Another note, I'm trying not to get too much Mod Podge on top of the transparency, and if I do get it on there, just around the edges to sort of blend it with the page, because I do still want that shiny texture of the transparency. And I'm just adding some gesso onto those textures and layers, and I'm sort of dabbing it around the edges of the photo to try and blend that into the page. And I really like the way this turned out. It makes it kind of blend into the background as well as being a main focal point, because the edges are blended but the center is still bright and focal, if that's a thing. So now I believe I've let that all dry, and I'm just adding some watercolor on top. I'm mixing a couple of greens. If you're interested, this palette is a Winsor & Newton travel palette that I got at Michael's. I used a coupon on it, and it's a really nice variety of color. I really like it. There's a second tray that slides out from the bottom of it, and it closes up and travels very well. But you don't need a high quality watercolor to do art journaling. It works really well even with the cheap palettes that you can get as well. And I think I'll probably get a cheaper palette and save this one more for nice watercoloring or use it in combination with one. So as you saw, I splatted some green splats, and now I'm just using some gelatos and rubbing that around the edges. My page is dry, but I'm using the oils in my fingers as well as sort of a little bit of the dampness from the page to blend those in. And I added black first, but I didn't really like how it looked. I wanted the page to still be light and airy, so I went ahead and added some of that aqua blue, and I used it again to blend in the edges of the photo a little bit. It worked well even on that shiny transparency surface. So now, because the black is too bold for me, I'm just adding a bunch of white gelato on top of it, and it sort of blends into a gray color, which I'm fine with, but I will end up adding some highlights as well, you'll see. So here I'm taking some Rub and Buff, and it's in the patina color, which is kind of a blue light aqua color. It's quite pretty, and the idea with this is that you just rub it on the raised textured surfaces, so that's exactly what I'm doing here. And I'm sort of patting it off on my scrap cardboard there, as you can see, so that I don't get too much of a big glob in one area. And this is sort of, I don't know what the base is. It smells quite strongly, so I know it's quite permanent anyways, and it works well on that shiny transparency surface too. And I'm just doing the same thing using some gesso, and that adds a bit of a white highlight to my page, which is what I had hoped for anyways. If you haven't heard me mention before, I should say, I'm just taking a wet brush and rubbing it in certain areas because I want to remove some of the color that I've added, because my notepaper really got pushed to the back and you couldn't see it, but I wanted it to show up a bit more. So that technique adds a bit of highlights too, and I just dabbed it with a Kleenex. What I was going to say is these cardboard pieces, I just keep them to use under my journal pages to prevent getting mediums on my other pages behind them and such. And so here I'm showing you a close-up of what it currently looks like. I just added some more gold Heidi Swap color shine on that, and I quite like how this is coming. So here you can see I've laid out some more of these splats. They are from Jen Schow's shop. They are actually a free cut file that I've turned into a printable. I will link that below, and you should definitely go check it out. So here I'm using the medium gel again. Not again, I used it in a previous video, but I'm just adding a thick layer on top and placing these splats. And this is a really great way to do almost a DIY rub-on effect. This transfer worked really well. I let it dry completely and then peeled off the transparency, and you can see this is a very clear transfer especially compared to what I originally attempted with the succulent image, and I'm super happy with how this worked. I think that it worked well because I already had layers on the page, and I was patient and let the gel dry completely, so I'm quite happy with how that works. And I really want to attempt this on cardstock or something to get another look and maybe trim out different images and use them as ephemera on my scrapbooking pages. I think it would be a neat way to do a DIY DIY rub-on type effect. So now to finish off the page, I'm just adding a bit of gold washi tape as well as another thin washi tape with a star pattern, I believe. And I've used some letter stickers and spelled out the word life, and I've just lined up those stickers on my ruler so that I can kind of move the title around the page without committing and see what it looks like before I actually stick it down. So here you can see I'm also moving that bicycle sticker around and seeing where I like it and just deciding exactly what I want to do. So I found that the title looked good right here, and I liked how it overlapped the photo a little bit and was also close to those washi tapes so they would ground it and underline it almost. And then I did the same idea with the bicycle sticker. It's a clear kind of epoxy type sticker, and I received this in a pocket letter, so thank you to the person who sent me that. I really like this sticker. And I'm just using my white Jelly Roll pen to write on top of all these layers, and I'm writing "so full of," and then it goes with the title "Life," so full of life. And the pen, excuse me, was having trouble writing on these layers, which is expected, so I was just sort of dabbing off the end of the pen and scribbling on some scrap paper to get it to work. So this is the end of my page. I hope you enjoyed the process, and I hope you also check me out on Instagram and Pinterest. I am StayBeautiful84 on both of those. Please also come check out my blog for more info and photos. Thank you so much for watching.